Okay, so it's just preparing.
I have a message which says it's now streaming live on Facebook. So I think you made it. You did it.
Fantastic, we did it. Okay, so welcome everybody to the first session with the Swiss School of Business Research. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all here today. And most of all, I'd like to thank you, Simone, for joining us to talk about what is an adaptable mindset and how innovation is not just about tech, but it's the adaptable mindset that makes you innovate successfully. So for those of you watching through Facebook, just to let you know, the session will start with a 20-minute presentation from Simone. Then we will have a 15-20-minute question and answer between the two of us, and then our students who are joining us here at the school on the Zoom will then join in with the question and answer session. So thanks again for joining us, Simone. I will hand over to you to give us a bit of an introduction and take us through your presentation.
Yes, thanks for having me. I want to start with an experiment. So before I start to share my screen, I would love to see your faces, because I'm going to ask you to do something with me, together with me. I'm not sure. I see some people have already sharing, some people not. Would it be possible to share your screen? Yes. Yes. What we're going to do is follow me. So we're going to look at the ceiling, and you're going to point your finger up, and you're going to rotate it clockwise. Ooh. So rotate it clockwise, look up, and then you take your finger, you keep rotating and you take it down. Slowly, you take it down and you follow your finger. Keep looking at your finger and you down. And then until you can see above, on top of your finger, keep rotating. So what do you notice when you do this? What do you notice? Anyone?
Well, I'll start. It feels very strange.
You can do it again, clockwise, and go quickly, and keep rotating and look at it. And what happened? If you go down and then you look on top of your finger, and what happened? Anyone? It's counterclockwise, right? So it was clockwise and now it's counterclockwise. So what happened? So this is what my talk is all about. So for me, it's a different perspective, right? You look from the bottom and then you look from the top and you see something else happens. So for me, this is innovation, right? Bringing in new perspectives, looking at things differently. So let me share my screen, and I will start to share some thoughts about how I innovate, and why it's so important to have an adaptable mindset. Yeah. Very briefly about myself. When you ask people to describe me, I think they say a lot of things, but a commonality that they say is that I might be a little bit crazy. So for me, this quote, I think is pretty typical for me. That also means that after a long corporate career, in 2018, I decided to go for the adventure, and I founded my own company. My company is called Rebella, since I'm a little bit of a rebel. What I do nowadays is I support organizations in their innovation journeys, and I do that in various ways. One of the ways that I do that is that I build teams, I create teams, or I supercharge teams. And well, since I'm a little bit of a rebel, I always try to find the craziness in people and to get them to find their inner rebel. And the reason why I find this important is, and I'm a strong believer that if you have polite teams, you get polite results. And especially this was an innovation team that I built in Barcelona when I was head of innovation. the minute the people found their inner rebel, I think the bright ideas and the out-of-the-box ideas started to pop up. For me, when I'm in this role, when I'm hired by organizations to create teams or to supercharge teams, I always find it my responsibility to create a safe haven, a place where people can really be themselves. And the reason why I find that extremely important is because I want people to be in the learning zone. So I don't want them to be in the apathy zone, of course, and definitely not in the panic zone. But also the comfort zone is not the place where I want my people to be in. So I want to make sure that the people in my team keep learning. And this is why safety in the team is super important. Also, I saw this this research some time ago. It's about the super chicken. When I build teams, I'm always very aware of the super chicken. And I don't know if you know what the super chicken is, but I've included a video. And if it works well, the sound is there, but give me a thumbs up or down if it's not working. Here you can hear a little bit about why I want, or why I'm so aware of the super chickens in my team.
An evolutionary biologist at Purdue University named William Muir studied chickens. He was interested in productivity. I think it's something that concerns all of us. But it's easy to measure in chickens because you just count the eggs. He wanted to know what could make his chickens more productive, so he devised a beautiful experiment. Chickens live in groups, so first of all he selected just an average flock and he let it alone for 6 generations. But then he created a second group of the individually most productive chickens. You could call them super chickens. And he put them together in a super flock, and each generation he selected only the most productive for breeding. After 6 generations had passed, what did he find? Well, the first group, the average group, was doing just fine. They were all plump and fully feathered, and egg production had increased dramatically. What about the second group? Well, all but 3 were dead. They'd pecked the rest to death. The individually productive chickens had only achieved their success by suppressing the productivity of the rest.
So I think this is a very strong message. And often when I'm in organizations, I still see that people are hired because they deliver results, but maybe they don't show the kind of behavior you would want to create a safe space. So I am very aware of the super chickens, and I really don't want super chickens in my my team.
An evolution.
So today I want to talk also about innovation, because this is my field of expertise. And I want to share my definition of innovation. And often you hear a lot about moonshots and disruption and stuff like that. But for me, basically, it comes down that innovation is having your head in the clouds while you keep your feet on the ground at the same time. That means for me that when I'm working in innovation, or my teams are working in innovation, that we work in 3 horizons at the same time. So horizon 1 is the here and the now. It's very close to the core of the organization. This is actually horizon 1 is where you keep your feet on the ground, right? Horizon 2 is much more about, well, what happens a little bit outside the core. It's around 5 years from now, but sometimes it's much closer by in time. And horizon 3 is the crazy stuff, right? So the place where you really dream big. And for me, it's very important to connect the future to the now. And especially because people also get very afraid of the future, of the unknown. But if you make that more tangible, and if you chunk it up in smaller pieces and show how you can innovate and improve today and how that is related to the future, that helps a lot to navigate your organization and your people within your organization in a nice way. So that means that people in an innovation team, by the way, I see someone putting something in the chat, but what I would prefer is I will continue, and then afterwards there's a lot of time to ask questions, right? So
yeah, just one thing, Simone, that was me actually, just to let you know that we can see your presentation, but it's not on full screen.
Oh,
yeah, I think just after we came from the video.
Oh, okay, but how is it not on full screen?
I don't know if that's just me, but we can see, yeah. I think.
What can you see? Because I do see it on full screen, so that's why I'm.
Maybe if anybody else is having the same issue, because I can see some of your like the background to your laptop, for example.
Okay. Let's do it like this.
There we go. Perfect. Thank you.
Yes.
Great.
Good. Okay.
Just in case there's anything on there you don't want us to see.
Yeah. No secrets. Well, I don't know. Okay,
full transparency.
Yes. Welcome to the online world, right?
Yeah.
So I was talking about connecting the future to the now, right? That means that in your team, you have to dream big, Horizon 3, right? The crazy stuff out there, but also you just have to do it. So that combination requires a specific mindset to be able to do both. And this is why I like Pablo Picasso a lot, because what he said is everything you can imagine is real. And this is exactly, I think, in the world of innovation. You have to think big, but then also you have to make it happen. And you have to be a little bit crazy to think big. But we live in a world where a lot is possible. So that also means that we have to rethink the way we work, because nowadays, I think I need to do something here. Yeah. Nowadays, if you innovate, this is not where creativity happens, right? If everybody is really stuck in their laptop and they're lined out. So we really have to think about how can we treat our people differently. So I want to share a little bit of insights about that. The first one is I often see in organizations that that failure and success are seen as opposites, right? But actually they are very closely related, and actually you need one to have the other. So you really need to reframe and embrace failure and should not be afraid to make failures. That also means that people in your team should be very daring to share their failures. When I was working in Spain, I really had to push my team to share their fuck ups because they were also not used to do so. Also, I think I read an article about Steve Jobs, and he stole actually this way of working from Einstein, and they did a lot of nothing, and which means they were not full on all the time, but they were also had lots of time to reflect. So, for instance, Einstein, he was famous for going out for sailing for hours, or and this is what he figured out, that's where the innovation happened and the ideas started to come to life and creativity happened. So for me, I think it's very important for companies to understand that sometimes if someone is going out for a walk, it's not doing nothing, right? It's really to get those idea flow going. I also think it's therefore very important to find your personal sources of inspiration. And then if you found them, combine them or integrate them somehow into your life. So if you really love art, maybe art makes you really think about ideas very openly, or art, I like art because you can see trends, upcoming trends, because artists are somehow very in touch with things that are under the surface in society. So, but if you find that, if you find what inspires you, how can you start to use that in your daily work or in your daily life? So that is also a challenge for yourself and for your team to figure out where you get your energy from. A nice example of this is Bas Ording. He's a Dutch guy. He worked for Apple a long time. He was the one who helped to develop the iOS system of Apple, and he worked also on the iPhone. He used to look a lot at movies, and he loved Minority Report, which was a science fiction movie in 2002. And this is the picture of Tom Cruise, where he was using hand gestures to share screens and to move screens. And this was his inspiration actually for the MacBook, to have the screens on the dock. So I find it very interesting to see how you get your inspiration and how you can bring it to your work, as a very specific example here. So as we started this session with the clock and about the perspectives, I love to share this picture as well. And then I often ask people, what do you see? What do you notice when you see this? And many times I get the answer that people say, hey, the girl sits wrongly on the horse. But actually, I think she's perfectly fine, but the horse is just going the wrong direction. So I think when you are in the world of innovation, you have to bring new perspectives. And you do that also by getting in touch with all kinds of other sources of inspiration. I also like to share this picture. When you see this, you have all kinds of thoughts about it. But if I share this picture, it was taken at the same time, same place, but different perspective. So it's also, I think, very important when you are in the world of innovation that you don't judge too fast on what you see, on the first thing you see. You have to walk around and you have to investigate a little bit and hold your judgment a little bit. I want to share this one too. Does anyone know this trick? Probably, if someone does. I see someone nodding. I don't know your name. Guy with red glasses. So can you put on your audio and say what do you see here? What's the trick? You're still on mute. Can you unmute yourself? I could not hear you. Could you or not? No? But for me, all the sound is gone now. Okay.
I couldn't hear.
Okay. Good. Okay. Next up. So we are you. Yes. I think what you want to say is that the middle line is the equal length, right? Well, this is what we learned. This is what we learned. But I did a trick. I made the top one shorter, so it's not. Right, so it's the same picture, but I changed it. This is also the reason why I show this, is because I want to that you stay sharp about what you learned in the past, and things might change over time. So don't take things for granted, because things that were the true yesterday can have changed today. So for me, it's also a lot about picking up the weak signs. And you can do that with art, or you can do that with a lot of reading or articles, or I don't know, writers, but it's important for you to see the weak signs, because that's where the Horizon 3 stuff is happening, the big stuff. I also want to share this one is it's important that you learn to see the things that you don't see. So in the Second World War, there was this problem of planes that were shot by, I think this by the Germans. And then you see on the left, bottom left, a small picture, and you see the holes, the fire holes. So the planes that came back had these kind of, had a lot of holes in these parts of the plane. So they said, hey, if we want to improve the planes, obviously we need, the engines are fine, but we need to do something on the wings. But this was really wrong thinking, because what happened is when the planes were shot in the engines, they were going down and they never got back to the base. So sometimes you really have to think about what do you actually see, And maybe you should look for the signs that you don't see to figure out what is going on. For me, it's all about daring to ask provoking questions. For instance, when I was working for Vueling Airlines, I asked the CEO on a regular basis, do you think you are an airline in 10 years from now? And that made him extremely, extremely uncomfortable. So whenever I ask provoking questions and I don't see a face like this, I'm not doing it right? So I'm always looking for the uncomfortable feeling that people get, because I think we are in a world that is in constant change, and you have to provoke a little bit, which is not very easy, right? So it's pretty hard to navigate in these days where everything is changing all the time. Which makes times pretty stressful. I read about a research that stress can reduce your thinking brain, and the part where your memory is and decision making and objective evaluation, that can shrink by 80% if you are under a lot of stress. But there's also good news, because another research showed that people who experience a lot of stress had a 43% higher risk of dying, but that was only for the people who perceived stress as harmful. So this negative effect, this 43%, was reduced to 0 when people believe that stress is not harmful for your body. So it's also about a mindset about how you deal with a lot of pressure and stress. I like this picture a lot of Bansky. If you get tired, learn to rest and not to quit. So you really also need to understand and learn a little bit about your body, and don't quit too much or too early. That is what I wanted to say. And what I like is another research that I read is that if you think about rest, everybody always associates that with sleeping. Well, actually, there are 7 types of rest for me. So, of course, it's physical rest. You have mental rest, but you also have sensory rest, for instance. So that you close off all those notifications from your phone and everything. You have creative rest, emotional rest. It's interesting to deep dive a little bit into what types of rest there are, and to tune into your own body to figure out where you need. Where you had an overkill of some kind, and where you need to take a rest. So sometimes rest for me is going out for a hard workout, because that gives me not physical rest, but a lot of mental rest. For me, that means in teams, sometimes you really have to go fast, and sometimes you have to slow down. What I like to do with my teams is take them out of the comfort zone. When we go slow, it's not resting, but it's like doing stuff like this. And you see the scared face of Xavi in the middle. It was a fantastic day, but he managed and he survived. So it's great to get people out of their comfort zones. This, I think, is one of the most important things to realize and to learn yourself. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I read an article from Andrew Huberman. I can highly recommend to listen to his podcasts. He's a neuroscientist from Stanford, and what he deep dived into adult learning, and he figured out that it only happens when you feel sort of discomfort. And the reason why that is you learn only when you have a high level of focus and engagement. But to get to a high level of focus, that means that you have to make your body alert, that there needs something to be learned, that it's so important to be learned. That makes that your body makes adrenaline, and adrenaline makes you a little bit uncomfortable. And often that's the moment that we stop, but that's actually the moment where we need to push through to really, really learn. So I really find this very interesting, that you only learn when you feel uncomfortable. So you really have to start to embrace the uncomfortable. The second part of adult learning is, I talked about that before, is It really happens when you stop and rest, have a good rest, because then it makes the connections in your brain. So focus and engage, and then rest well, and that's the trick for adult learning. I want to close off with this last part. It's also, I think, very interesting about the lucky mindset. And I want to share a small part from Christian Boeks. And he is a professor in New York, and he is specialized in serendipity. So he has a small example of a lucky mindset that I want to share.
They were comparing lucky with unlucky people. And, you know, they did this experiment where they said, okay, they took one very lucky person, so someone who self-identified as extremely lucky, and someone who self-identified as extremely unlucky. And they did the same thing where they said, okay, walk down the street in the UK, go into a coffee shop, order a coffee, and sit down. And so what they didn't tell them is that the cameras, like there's hidden cameras across the road, there's a £5 note in front of the coffee shop, and there's only 4 tables in the coffee shop, 3 of which there would be actors, and the 4th one is like a super successful businessman who sits right next to the counter. So the lucky person goes down the street, sees the £5 note, picks it up, is super excited, yeah, great, I found money, walks into the coffee shop, orders a coffee, has a conversation with the barista, sits next to the businessman, has a conversation, opportunity comes out of it, and like he makes a friend, right? So that's the lucky person's day. The unlucky person like goes down the street, steps over the £5 note, goes to the counter, orders the coffee, also sits next to the businessman, because that's the only table that's right next to the counter, ignores the businessman, and that's it. And so at the end of the day, they debrief, right? So they ask the lucky person, how was your day? And the lucky person's, well, amazing, I found money in the street, I made 2 new friends, and I got an amazing opportunity. And then they ask the unlucky person, how was your day? Yeah, nothing really happened.
So this is amazing, right? So I think this is called... They were comparing... Ooh, it's for me, it's about the lucky mindset and how powerful that is. So I reflect on that a lot. And I always try to feel extremely lucky about everything that's happening. So when you feel lucky, you're more open to opportunities. I want to close off my talk about this for now. It's always about people and their mindset. I think this picture says it all, right? And I'm going to open the floor for questions. I'm going to stop share my screen. Is that okay? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What yeah, a great way to finish, you know, just to add to that, it's all about the people, Simone. We haven't actually met yet in real life. I look forward to the day that we can, but we actually met when we, well, I contacted you on LinkedIn because I saw you speak at an event, and you know, it was serendipitous for me that you responded, because talking about getting comfortable, feeling uncomfortable, that's an area in which I've really had to work on, is networking, but it's been invaluable to me in my profession. So I think you're absolutely right. It's all about the people and how we perceive luck. So that was great, thank you. First question for me, I'd like to find out a little bit more about your day-to-day work. So what does an innovation catalyst do on a day-to-day basis? Yeah, it's a great question. I ask myself that question too a lot. No, so what happened is I worked a long time in corporate life, where you have one employer and you have sort of one job. Well, typically I had sort of one normal job and then something on the side. So I started to figure out for myself that I would be most productive, successful, and especially enjoying when I was doing more things than just one. So when I founded my company in 2018, that was for me getting uncomfortable, because I had to leave my safe corporate life. But thank the day that I did that. So the first assignment was a large assignment, and that was for Vueling Airlines in Barcelona for 2 years. Then I started also with Chanel on the side, because I was like, I did not stop my corporate career to do something the same again. So I started to work in Barcelona on the side, also in Paris for Chanel. I started to get some invites for speaking opportunities. So I deep dived into that. It scared the heck out of me. So I help large organizations, but I also have talks on the side. What I do with organizations is sometimes I create a team. Sometimes I build a team from scratch, an innovation team, but for a period of time. So not for years and years, because I don't want to be companies dependent on me. I also, currently I work for a Dutch company in the world of construction. So that's a whole different ball game. And what I do there is, it's kind of an old school environment. So I help the board of directors to get a better understanding of innovation, but also bring an outside in view. So for instance, every Friday I record a video. It's like a 6, 7, 8 minute video. And I look to the world in wonder, and I see surprising innovations that I think this is interesting to share. So I record a video and I share that within 100. I have a WhatsApp group that is a growing WhatsApp group, and I share it there with 100 people, and also the top 35 of the company. So there I combine that I really like to explore new technologies and innovations, and I combine that with, hey, this could be valuable for this company I work for right now. I like to write articles. So I'm not sure if you shared one article of mine, but I like to write.
Yeah, absolutely. We did indeed. We shared it on the school website, and I'll be sure to share it again, which is the article, which is the adaptable mindset as a prerequisite for innovation. So some of the questions that I have for you are related to that. And in fact, you brought up some of the areas of that article in your presentation. So let's talk about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, which I think I completely agree with. First of all, running sessions like this, it's something I've had to get comfortable with. And I'm sure a lot of us in the past year have had to get comfortable with everything moving online. But let's think about this from a team perspective. How do you help your teams get comfortable with being uncomfortable?
Well, so one of the examples you saw, right, that I took them to go indoor skydiving, for instance.
Yes.
Those are ways to do that. I also like to really get to know the people in my team, because then I understand what really makes them tick. But I also know then where their strengths are, and those most of the time where the strengths of people are is the comfort zone. And I also, so for instance, in the team in Barcelona, I had developers and I had service designers. So the service designers are the people who went out there and really got connected to the customer and did research. And the developers typically were at the office behind the computer for the entire week. So what I did was I said to the developers, you have to go together with the service designer, for instance, to the airport, and one of the products you make, one of the concepts you are developing, we need to show that to a customer, a potential customer. So for the service designer, that's like normal thing of doing, but for the developer to get instant feedback about things that they developed and were not working, super uncomfortable, super funny also. But this is how I pushed them a little bit. And I also did the other way around. So the service designers really had to start to understand, for instance, how a developer works and what it takes to develop something. That you can come up with crazy stuff, but sometimes it's easier to develop a square than a circle, for instance. So also, stimulate that and do that in a safe environment. So that it's not going to be like a panic zone, right? That they still are in the learning zone and not ending up in the panic zone.
Yeah, I think that's really key. And that's also something I wanted to pick up on, because you mentioned a safe haven. And a lot of my work focuses on diversity and inclusion. So You're taking your team members skydiving, yet at the same time you're creating a safe haven. Can you tell us about how you create that psychological safety?
Yeah, so for instance, when I in the beginning I started that I really hire for growth mindset, right? So I really don't want to have the super chicken in my team. And when I find super chickens in my team, I give them an opportunity to grow. But if they won't, then I will definitely say goodbye to them. And this sounds, people find me always very friendly. I am, but I can also be very strict about these kind of things because I know what it does when you have a super chicken in a team. I've been in many teams like that. And I don't want to be responsible for a team where you have this. And when I have the responsibility for a team, I also feel it my responsibility to make sure that either people develop and grow or they get out of my team. And once I, for instance, in Spain, I had someone like that, and I asked him to leave the team. And the day after, the tension was out of the team. It was super strong and powerful to see. So that also gives, if you do that, the others, they see that they are being respected. And that helps a lot in creating this safe haven.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great answer. And I think that also demonstrates the fact that we can still create safe havens, comfortable spaces, but it doesn't mean to say we can't take decisions, which means, you know, changing the structure of the team when we need to. So yeah. That was a really good point. Thank you. And then just, I think one final question for me before we open it to our members on the Zoom chat. You talked about art. One of the ways we connected is through art. You can see here, I have my art in the background. I too am inspired by art. Also, I try to inspire my students. I take students to art exhibitions, for example, to inspire them and help with their innovation and creativity. And you mentioned many artists in the article. How have you been inspired by art? Anything in particular that comes up for you?
Well, art has many forms, right? So it's paintings, but it's of course also music. And so when I was brought up, I was not brought up in like a very how do you say it, stimulated environment. So there was not a lot of art in our house. So I really learned to do that myself. I live in Amsterdam. I was brought up in Amsterdam. You have some great museums here. So I love to go there just to let my mind wander. Maybe the best example to share is when I turned 21, I bought the complete work of a Dutch writer. It's like from the 1900s, and he wrote really, how do you say that, vividly, and that really opened up my world because I was studying mathematics, and I started to learn that you can also how do you say it, create beautiful stories when you have to share your message or when you have to explain what you're doing, especially because I was studying mathematics and everybody was asking me, what the hell are you learning or doing? So that, I think those books helped me to really create very nice narratives. So I think that is my deepest memory of a real connected example.
Great, thank you for sharing that. And I think also, as you mentioned, it's very important for us to remember that art takes many forms.
Yeah.
And this is also related when you talked about the 7 types of rest and how important it is for us, especially when we're managing stress, especially in these unprecedented times, and not only when we're managing ourselves, but when we're managing other people as well. So thank you for that. Well, I see we've started to get some questions in the chat. So how about if anybody has a question, feel free to turn your cameras on and ask the question, or put the question in the chat, whatever is more comfortable for you.
Yeah, I see one from Jessica. Maybe you want to, yes, hi. Maybe you want to share it again? Ah, okay, yeah, okay, good. I cannot hear you, and I think you're still on mute.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
From the chat, okay?
Yeah, perfect, yeah. So in the chat, the question is curious. The mindset of yes and creates an atmosphere of collaboration, at least to us improvisers. How valuable is it for you? You use it? Yes, yes, a lot. It's super powerful. The other day I was helping a team, an online team, a team in the States and a team in Switzerland to come together. And they never really collaborated. So we needed to figure out ways to get them together. And we did an exercise, which is called, I don't know, That's Right, Bob. Do you know this exercise? Yeah? So that's an exercise where you need to let two people talk together, and they are for a TV show, imaginary, right? And they are trying to sell like a crazy thing, right? Like a phone, a chocolate phone or whatever. And then you always have to build upon what the previous person said. So you say, yeah, this is a great phone where you can that you can eat. And then the other says, yes, and yeah, yes, and you can also watch TV on it. And then the other one says, that's right, Bob. Yes, and so you build on it. It's like an exercise where you get really crazy thinking. And afterwards, we go into the normal content and we let them ideate on concepts. And you see that they are much more open and also much more, I don't know if nice is a better way to say it. It's not the right way to say it, but they are more open. And the atmosphere in the teams is more receptive. So I use it a lot. Yeah.
And thank you for letting me know, Jessica. I think you can unmute now. Can we just double check that? Let's.
Hello.
There we
Yes.
go. Thank you so much for that question, Jessica. Yes.
Yes.
Any other comments to make on that, Jessica?
I just asked, sometimes I teach improv, and so I was so curious about this topic about the collaborative mindset, but I don't tell them it's improv. I don't tell them any of this stuff. I just say it's an adaptive mindset. So I'm wondering if the people in the audience also do it in a sneaky way.
Yeah, no, that's the same. I use a lot of tools and stuff, and then typically I don't label it, because then it becomes like more like a scientific thing or whatever, and just do it. And the exercise in the beginning, I'm not sure if you were there in the beginning with the clock. You missed it. But that's also an exercise to teach people that if you look from a different perspective, things might look very different. And then it's a great way, we call it an eye opener. It's a great way to loosen up, to wake up the audience. I can maybe if you connect with me on LinkedIn, I can share with you the other exercise. Yeah.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you so much for joining us. Really nice to have you with us. Anybody else have a question? So please feel free to put it on the chat, and now you ought to be able to unmute if you'd like to ask your question, please. If not, of course, I have plenty more questions to ask you, but just to give it to the floor in case anybody has a question.
Yeah, I think Richard has a question. Richard.
Can you unmute, Richard? I think you should be able to unmute. There, hi, Rick. Oh.
Yeah, I see a question about my number to follow me on WhatsApp. So I try figure it out, Richard, and then in the meantime, I respond to another question in the chat. I have a YouTube channel. You can maybe follow me there. I can share later on, but maybe best way to follow me is on LinkedIn, because I share quite a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. And what I share on WhatsApp on Fridays, that's specifically for this company. But maybe if it's successful, I might open up and then bring it to the world. But I need to discuss with my customer to do so. But John,
you can hear me.
Yes, now I can hear you.
You can hear me now. Okay. All right. Just a short question. I'm taking up something Victoria said just a moment ago. It was about she referenced the difficult situation at the moment. I'd be very interested to know, when companies are under stress, as in the moment, it's often said that they find it hard to innovate under stress. And yet, in this present pandemic, people often say that companies have to change, they have to innovate. So what is the, what can management do in a company to facilitate this process?
I see two types of companies right now. The companies that are thinking this is the moment to change, and the companies that are thinking, okay, this is the moment to panic and to keep everything to be very focused on the here and the now and to survive this time. Obviously, I don't think that is the way forward. I worked for a company in the past couple of months. I cannot reveal the name, but where we that they were really focused on survival, because they were in an industry that is really under pressure. And we were an external team, and we were asked to come up with really disruptive ideas that would bring in revenue that could bring in revenue pretty quickly, but totally outside their core. And what we saw is that they were not able to come up with these kind of ideas because they're so stuck in their own world. So you see companies acknowledging that they are not able to come up with things themselves, and then, well, they hire a team like this. I also facilitated another team where they said we are going to focus on our top management. So they had like a top 20 of their company, and we took them on a journey for a couple of weeks, or 2 months almost, to come up with new business models. So same assignments, 2 different approaches, but both acknowledged that this was also the time to do something differently, and this is the time to do it now. So that is a real important, I think, insight. So it has to come from the top, and they have to understand that, okay, maybe we cannot do it ourselves, or we want to make it a learning experience, but we really need to support it from higher up.
So can I just say, are you saying that consultants as risk sharers are brought into the company?
I don't know. I don't like the word consultant, because for me a consultant is much more being on the side and then say you have to do this. Well, I think it's more about that.
Oh, I should have said expert.
Yeah, expert, or yeah, creatives. Yeah. And and you can level up, right? So you can have one expert who helps people within to develop. Generally takes more time, but at least it's more sustainable. But you can also say, okay, we just are going to put a team outside the core, and they're just going to come up with new businesses, and they're just going to do it just quickly. Yeah, but you have different types to do so.
And if I can just say one more, correct. I mentioned stress then, which you sort of skirted round, because the stress factor, I think from what you've said, can be a block to it. So sometimes senior management doesn't know the stress they're putting the lower levels on.
Yeah.
So is there a way in which, how can I say, they're made aware of the fact that this may be the condition and one of the reasons why they can't move on?
Yeah. Yeah, no, so this is why my company is called Rebella. This is because they hire me also to be bluntly honest about these kind of things. So I think in the early days you had the jester, right?
Mhm.
So you had that one guy who said to the king, "Hey, you're not wearing any clothes." You need those kind of people.
Yeah.
So you need people who say, "Hey, you are too stressful," and it depends on the corporate culture whether you have people internally who are able to do so, or otherwise they are hired like me, and I have nothing to lose. And what I try to make people aware that if you start to work on your adaptability, that also helps you to lower stress and to get you more comfortable, to make your team more comfortable, and then more results come out of that. So today I did not touch upon, well, mindfulness and that kind of stuff, but I think it's also part of it. Some people like to do yoga, other people like a run, and someone else goes to the museum. So, but you have to start to work on that kind of adaptability. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you for joining us, and thanks for the great question. I mean, you mentioned stress in your article, Simone, and it's incredibly important right now, as Richard rightly said. In fact, it's actually Mental Health Awareness Month this month. And it's something that I have been exploring a bit more in terms of what can organisations and higher education institutions do to help students and employees. And I think we've touched upon some of those areas already. As you rightly said, Simone, it's about company culture. So it's about having a psychologically safe space in which people feel that they can open up. And I, in fact, had a session last week about breaking the stigma of talking about mental health issues. So I recommend for all of you follow. Also, it's Mental Health Awareness Week in the UK next week, and their theme is nature, which is something you talk about too, also in your article, Simone. Tell us a bit more about how we can help our teams have an adaptable mindset through nature.
Yeah, so I like nature a lot. I think just walking through woods, I think scientifically proven that really eases you down, and makes your creativity flow. I just did a course in biomimicry. I can highly recommend that for the people who don't know anything about it. But what can you learn from nature? The smart things that nature has. It's very fascinating. I think all the answers are already out there, but we just have to find them. So every time I bump into a problem, I think about how would nature solve this? And then you investigate a little bit. It can be from the feet of animals, how they were designed to get grip or to not make noise or stuff like that, to how can you make solar panels very smooth that they clean up themselves. So nature can give you rest, right? It gives you, I think, also the color green helps you to slow down, but it also can give you a lot of inspiration on how to solve big problems. If you deep dive into biomimicry a little bit, if you Google on it, you get amazing examples. Yeah, so if you're a nature lover, I can highly recommend it. I did a course for $50, I think, in some place. That's, I think, the benefit of online learning, right? So you can get anything from everywhere if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And this world we live in right now, there are some positive aspects. I took my nephew on a virtual art tour in Washington on Sunday evening. So that's another example of how we can also connect with our teams if they're virtual, if they're remote. I think the social aspect is incredibly important to help with those stress levels as well. Can create for our communities.
Yeah, and I think as a leader of a team.
I lost you a minute then. Another question, just one more question related to stress. How do you manage your own stress and that of your teams? That's a question that came from one of our students on Facebook.
Yeah, so I really need to run a lot, run outside or do extensive or intensive sport. That's one way. I also have days when I really like to create stuff. So I make booklets and when I don't do that for quite some time, I feel I need to have 1 or 2 days that I just watch videos and I surf the web for nice pictures or art or stuff like that. So that is, I learned that is also for me a way to rest, but that's more like rest, but not doing nothing, but getting inspiration, or like mental rest or something like that. And I also like to walk a lot. And then most of the time I listen to podcasts, and I listen to random podcasts. So about, I like the Huberman Lab. It's like the neuroscientist about learning about your body a lot, but I can also listen to like thrillers or detective kind of podcasts, or about politics or anything. So for me, dealing with stress is also tapping into my sources of inspiration. I think that is the way how I deal with stress the best.
Okay, great, thank you. And for those of you that would like to know more about the topics that we've discussed today, as I say, I will share the article. It's already been shared on Facebook. I will share it again on my LinkedIn page also. We have time for one more question. Anybody have another question?
And also people can connect with me on LinkedIn, so you can always ask me. I try to keep up with the chat in my LinkedIn. So if you have questions, you can, after this session, you can always drop a message there.
Sorry, my connection was a bit bad there. Do we have any more questions? We have time for one more question.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm really interested. It's great talk, and I think we can get a lot from it. I just want to share something, because the Japanese work in groups, and I always wondered how they ever innovated. You know, you talk about groups being too polite, and it's very interesting because they're very innovative at the moment, actually, incredibly innovative in the country, lots of new ideas. And it's what you say, there's no big chicken. There's no super chicken in the group. And also they're able to, they all throw their ideas into a pot in the middle. It's not a real pot, it's a virtual one. And they don't really talk to one another directly. And at the end, they listen and watch. And at the end, they sort of almost osmotically understand where they've got to. And then they go away and they think about it. And then they sort of come back again. And it's quite interesting. And I don't know if there's a culture element in innovation, whether people can harness this. And I suppose that means understanding a little bit about one's own cultural programming.
Yeah, I can highly recommend the book from Erin Meyer, The Culture Map, which is all about cultural differences. She just wrote this book. This book, also, No Rules, Rules, together with the CEO of Netflix. Interesting book as well. And last chapter is also about cultural differences. For me, it helped a lot when I work in international environments. The culture map helped me a lot to understand much better, because I'm a Dutch person, and then I had to work in a Spanish environment. You can imagine what happened. So the book was very, very helpful. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for the reference.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I also recommend that book. I read it on Simone's recommendation. I use it in my classes. So highly recommend that book too, because absolutely there will be cultural differences, especially when managing cross-culturally. So, Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Simone. That's given us a lot to think about. I think my main takeaways for me were get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And for those of us that are managing and running organizations, make sure that we create safe havens, safe spaces to allow our employees and our students to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So thank you so much, and thank you to all of you that joined us today, both on Facebook Live and from the school in the Zoom chat. And I look forward to connecting with you at another session. And thank you so much to the school for inviting us both today. Thank you.
Yes. Thanks.